legitimate. And people that are attacking those of us that have raised this question don't understand the 14th Amendment. They say she was born in England, in Oakland, that's enough. But the Constitution's 14th Amendment Citizenship Clause actually says all persons born in the United States and subject to its jurisdiction. Those things are not um, identical. You've got to be both born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction to be a citizen under the 14th Amendment. And the question is, what does subject to the jurisdiction mean? And I think the scholarship that I've done, the review of the 14th Amendment's debates in Congress and in the ratifying conventions, indicates to me that that meant subject to the complete allegiance owing jurisdiction, not subject to the partial or what they call territorial jurisdiction. Everybody that's within our borders has to comply with our laws, but not everybody within our borders owes allegiance to this country. Temporary sojourners, temporary visitors, that's the phrase sojourners that they used at the time, were not subject to that complete jurisdiction and therefore not eligible for this birthright citizenship provision. And Miss Harris, Vice President Harris's parents were temporary sojourners. They were both here on student visas. Her mother's student visa had, we subsequently learned, had expired before she was born, so her mother was not even here lawfully. And her father may have had some diplomatic status in addition to being his student visa, which even under the traditional understanding of the 14th Amendment may render her ineligible. But even raising these questions has led, to this huge backlash. Oh, you're just birthers. You only do this with people of African American descent, not anything else. That's nonsense. I've been writing about this subject for over 20 years, and I do think the subject to the jurisdiction clause has independent meaning from the birth on U.S. soil clause, and we've largely ignored that for about the last 50 or 60 years.
Yeah. It is. You've been talking about this for, as you said, writing for 20 years. Did you ever think you'd face a day where it would actually become relevant to the question of a potential president, that, you would have this very situation?
Well, I suspected it would become relevant. What I didn't expect was that people would so ignore the constitutional issue underlying it that we would pretend there wasn't even an issue, and you just kind of blow through it as if the text didn't have any meaning and nobody could raise the challenge. The founders were very wise. They understood that in chief ought not to have at risk our own national security and national sovereignty. And they were right about that, and that's why this clause is there. And to pretend like it's some archaic relic of the 18th century, particularly if anything, it's even more important today than it was then. We had much greater security
Mhm.
created by two oceans that were hard to traverse back then. I mean, we don't have that now, and the notion that we're going to completely pretend that there's not an issue here with somebody who may well owe allegiance to a foreign nation, perhaps even one at odds with our own national security interests.
Yeah.
This is a problem, and it ought to be able to be raised in a serious way without the kind of vitriolic calumnies that are cast about and against anybody that raises it. But that's not the era, the political era in which we find ourselves.
No, it's not, unfortunately, Dr. Eastman. Dr. John Eastman, thank you so much. And I'll remind our viewers, as I always do when you join us, you're continuing